So birth certificates, are they mandatory for spousal sponsorship? Who needs to submit? Should you get them translated? Are there any additional documents required? And finally, what if you don't have one? Let's find out. So first off, birth certificates are mandatory for spousal sponsorship. The principal applicant who's applying for permanent residence has to submit a birth certificate. It's not really a requirement for the sponsor, but the principal applicant, no matter what country they are from. So this is the infamous guide 5289 for spousal sponsorship. If you scroll down and click on step 5, check your application to avoid common mistakes. If you scroll down here even further, you are going to get to proof of identity documents. And in this, it says proof of identity is an important part of an application to become a permanent resident. So under bullet 2, it says make sure you submit a copy of your birth certificate and, if you've included dependents, the birth certificate of your family members. So as we just saw, birth certificates are mandatory. Now, depending on the country the principal applicant is from, the instructions to submit the birth certificate and any additional documents can be different. So again, getting back to the guide 5289, if you scroll down under step 2, gather documents, if you scroll down further, you get to country specific requirements. Here, you're obviously going to select the kind of sponsorship. So let's go with my spouse and then the country that person being sponsored lives in. So let's select India, for example. And if I click on get checklist and forms, you get the country specific requirements. So if I scroll down here under country specific requirements, there is a section dedicated to birth certificates. So these are the specialized instructions with any additional document requirements for applicants from India. And we'll get to that again in a second, but I just want to show you that these specialized instructions can change. So for example, if I select another country, let's go with Jamaica. So I'm going to select Jamaica here again. And if I click on get checklist and forms, I get the specialized instructions for Jamaica. And if I scroll down and do a quick glance, I don't see anything for birth certificates. That simply means that there are no special instructions for birth certificates, meaning you are simply going to follow the generalized instructions for birth certificates. You will still submit the birth certificate, but you don't have any special instructions. I guess it's the same case for Pakistan as well. So if you don't see birth certificates mentioned here in the country specific requirements, that does not mean that you won't submit it. It simply means that there are no special instructions or additional documents mentioned here. Alright, another way to verify this is to get to your document checklist 5533, which you can also find on this page. So after selecting your country, if you click on get checklist and forms, the first option will be a link for document checklist 5533. So if you click this and download this, this is what it's going to look like. You must already be familiar with this. And if I scroll down to page 5, under supporting documents for the principal applicant or the sponsored person, under identity documents, as you see, birth certificate is listed right here. So it says birth certificate or baptismal certificate for yourself and all your dependents. So this document checklist is clearly telling you to submit your birth certificate. For special instructions about your birth certificate, in case you have late registered birth certificate or if you don't have a birth certificate, those can be found in this page, which you'll get after selecting your country. Okay, so if you don't see anything here, that simply means that go with the generic instructions and submit your birth certificate. So let me give you our example. When my wife was gathering her documents for spousal sponsorship, she did not have a birth certificate. So she had to get what is called a late registered birth certificate. And my guess is most of us applicants from India are going to go this route. So she got in touch with her local municipal office or municipality, and then she submitted a couple of documents that they requested, filled out an application, and then she was able to obtain a late registered birth certificate, an official document. So as you can see, this is my wife's official late registered birth certificate. It's in English and in Hindi. We did not get this translated because it's already in English. And it's got all the important details: her date of birth, her place of birth, her name, obviously, her parents' names and their addresses, and the registration number, date of issue, seal and signature of the issuing authority, and the barcode. So this is a legit document. And as you can see right here, the date of registration is July 29, 2021. Hence a late registered birth certificate. Obviously, the structure and format of the birth certificate is going to vary from one municipality to the other or from one country to the other, but it should have all the important details that we looked at in order to establish legitimacy. Now, because this was a late registered birth certificate, we needed to provide additional documents based on the country specific requirements for India. So again, this is the country specific requirements page that we just looked at. I'm going to link it in the description below. And I've selected India. And if we scroll down under birth certificates, it clearly says if a birth is registered late, include a copy of the original baptism certificate and copies of other original documents that establish identity, such as old school records and voter ID card. So you can ignore this baptism certificate if it doesn't apply to you. But because this is a late registered birth certificate, what you'll do when you submit your application is to include the late registered birth certificate that we just looked at along with these documents. So old school records, 5th class, middle standard, matriculation, and voter ID card. So what we ended up uploading was obviously the late registered birth certificate, her 10th and 12th mark sheets from school which had birth date in them, as well as her voter ID card. Basically just combine all this in a single document and upload it in the online portal. So here's the online portal. If you scroll down and get to the supporting documents section, this is where you're going to select identity and civil status documents and simply upload the birth certificate and all the other documents. You can either combine them all together or you can even upload them independently, doesn't really matter. But make sure you don't just upload your late registered birth certificate. Also provide these additional documents that they're asking for, okay? And make sure to stick with these labeling instructions. So basically last name, first name of the applicant, proof of identity, and then birth certificate, all right? Now let's say your birth certificate is completely in a different language, let's say Hindi, then you will have to get it translated before you submit. So for translation, you have two options, either use a certified translator or a non-certified translator. If you want to use a certified translator, first of all, you have to make sure that they are certified. A simple Google search is going to give you a list of certified translators in Canada, and you can choose to contact any one of them. Most of this is online, so even if you're outside of Canada, it's not going to matter. This company, docsbase.ca, a lot of people seem to be using this for certified translation. So you simply write your name, email, phone number, and you upload your documents, and they will come back to you with an estimate of how much it's going to cost you. I think it's pretty cost effective. A lot of people seem to be recommending it. That's why I am recommending this website. This video is not sponsored by them or anything. So once you get this translation done, you should have, number one, the original scan or the certified true copy of your birth certificate. Number two, the actual translation that they'll do. And number three, the certificate of translation by the certified translator. And then you'll upload all that in the online portal. So again, this is the online portal. Come back to the supporting documents category, upload your original birth certificate in the identity and civil status documents. So basically your original scan or the certified true copy you can upload here. And then under translations and affidavits, you can upload the translation and the certificate of translation. And that's it. The second option is to use a non-certified translator. There's no harm in that. But in that case, what you'll upload is the scan of your original or a certified true copy of your original, the actual translation along with an affidavit of accuracy. And you can get this affidavit from a notary public, right? By the way, if your birth certificate is completely handwritten, that's still fine. You don't need to necessarily computerize or digitize it, although it's not a bad idea, as long as it's in English or French. But if it's not in English or French, then you must definitely get it translated. And it's not a bad idea to get it digitized also. Okay, first of all, if you don't have a birth certificate, your first task is to find out how you can get it. Don't just resort to getting substitutes. Make your most sincere attempt to get your birth certificate. In majority of the cases, as long as you have some record of your birth somewhere, you should be able to use that to contact your local municipality and get a late registered birth certificate. So make the most sincere attempt to get it. I know it's going to be frustrating contacting your local municipality and there might be a lot of waiting time, but it is worth it. So when can this be a problem? Let's say you don't have a birth certificate and there is no record of your birth anywhere. And let's say your old birth record got destroyed or lost, or let's say the hospital that you were born in is now closed. In that case, it might get pretty hard to obtain a late registered birth certificate. So what you can do in this case is, again, try to get in touch with your local municipality and try to obtain an official letter from them explaining to you why they cannot get a birth certificate for you. So basically highlighting all the reasons that they've checked all the records and they've made every attempt to locate your birth records, but because your birth records are not available, they are not in a position to issue you a birth certificate. Get all that in writing in their official letterhead, and again with the seal and sign of the issuing authority. The format and structure for such a document is obviously going to be different for different countries, and it can also vary from one municipality to the other in the same country. For example, for India, it's commonly known as the Non-Availability of Birth Certificate, or NABC. So you can definitely contact your local municipality and apply for that. And it's very easy process. Just simply Google NABC and you'll find hundreds of links on how to get a NABC in India. I'm not going to go into details of that. It's a pretty straightforward process. So try to obtain a document like non-availability of birth certificate from your issuing authority and make sure it is in English or French. Otherwise, get it translated also. Again, getting a non-availability of birth certificate or a similar document from your municipality is not going to be easy. It's pretty much guaranteed to come with hassles and frustrations, but make every attempt to get it, because birth certificates, like we just discussed, are highly crucial documents for your spousal sponsorship application, and if you don't submit them, you have to have very solid backing on why you did not submit birth certificates. Such a document, such as non-availability of birth certificate, is a good substitute. Okay, so once you have this non-availability document with you, then what you'll do is upload this in the online portal along with all the other supporting documents such as old school records, voter ID card, 10th and 12th mark sheets, what have you. Just check the country specific requirements to make sure what other documents are required, along with a letter of explanation. Now, letter of explanation becomes important here, so don't ignore it. Because you've not provided birth certificate and you are uploading non-availability of birth certificate and all the other documents, you also should write a letter of explanation explaining in a properly structured manner how you made every attempt to get your birth certificate, but because you could not find your birth certificate because of whatever reason, explain the genuine reason. This is the document you're providing, which is the non-availability of birth certificate, and you're also attaching all the other supporting documents that verify your proof of birth. Okay, and just to make this a little more convincing, what you can do is also get an affidavit of accuracy from a notary public or a gazetted officer, basically swearing to the accuracy of all the proof that you have submitted. That will make a strong case when you don't have a birth certificate or a late registered birth certificate. Finally, let's say if there's genuinely no way for you to get a non-availability of birth certificate document, and I stress the word genuinely. You've contacted your municipality multiple times, but they won't respond. They even refuse to give you a non-availability of birth certificate for whatever grounds they highlight. In that case, what you can do is first write a detailed explanation letter explaining all this, that you've made every attempt to get such a certificate, and document your interactions with the municipality if possible, to put those interactions in the explanation letter, so as to provide proof to the officer that you did indeed make genuine attempts. And then along with that, attach all the other supporting documents such as your voter ID card, your old passports, your school mark sheets, school leaving certificates, whatever you can. Along with that, try to get an affidavit from a notary public or any highly ranked official or a gazetted officer who verifies all this information and swears to the accuracy of all the birth details that you have provided. And then upload all that in the online portal. But don't just resort to this, writing an explanation letter and providing all the other supporting documents. It has worked for some people, but it may not necessarily work for you, because a lot of people have gotten rejections also because of this. So make every attempt to get a late registered birth certificate first. If you can't get that, then try to get an official non-availability of birth certificate and upload it along with all the supporting documents that we discussed to corroborate the details. And then most likely you should be fine. Speaking of things that you don't have, if you've submitted your application and received AOR, biometrics or medical and are struggling to link your application to the PR tracker, then this video here might help. I'll catch you there.